Welcome to my series exploring some of the world's lesser-known hoaxes. For as long as people have told stories, others have found ways to make them believe the impossible. And throughout history, some of those deceptions have been so convincing that thousands, even millions of people accepted them as fact. Some hoaxes are created for money, others for fame, some to make a point, and some simply because someone wanted to see just how far a lie could travel. It's easy to think that people are more gullible 100 years ago. After all, they didn't have the internet and smartphones and AI to fact-check what we're seeing. But are we really so different? Technology changes, but human nature doesn't. There's always going to be pranks and fake news and elaborate hoaxes driven by greed or revenge or curiosity or something, and some for just no other reason than the thrill of fooling the world. Some have become famous, like in 1912, the Piltdown Man convinced scientists they had found the long-lost missing link between humans and apes, until it was finally exposed as an elaborate forgery more than 40 years later. 40 years! Scientists believed this scientific fact, which would mean it would be part of a generation's education. The skull had a large brain, but a primitive ape-like jaw, which aligned with many 20th century European biases. In 1953, newly developed research into fluorine absorption dating and microscopic analysis uncovered the truth behind the New Dawn Man. He was, in fact, the cranium of a normal medieval human. The jaw and teeth belonged to a modern orangutan, and the teeth had been deliberately filed down with tools to mimic human wear patterns. The bones accompanying the artifacts were artificially stained with iron solutions and chromic acid to make them look as though they had been buried in ancient gravel. The discovery sent scientists down the wrong path for decades. Another well-documented fakery is the Great Moon Hoax of 1835, which persuaded readers that astronomers had discovered winged humanoids, crystal temples, strange alien creatures living on the moon. The series of 6 articles featured in the New York Sun newspaper, written by reporter Richard Adams Locke. The stories were actually intended as satire to mock the prevailing theories of the time that all celestial bodies were inhabited. However, the public took the sensational claims as hard scientific fact, and readership grew dramatically. Finally, weeks later, the paper admitted the story was a fake. More recently, the balloon boy became a sensational story in the news. I actually remember watching it on television. Rescue crews desperately chasing what everyone believed was a homemade flying saucer carrying a terrified 6-year-old boy across the Colorado sky. I remember feeling horrified for the poor child, only to discover later that the whole thing had been staged as a publicity stunt. I was both relieved and mystified once it was revealed it was just a hoax. Every false story of them reveals something about us, about hope, trust, curiosity, and just how easily even intelligent people can believe something that isn't true. Maybe it even feeds into our need for something crazy to watch or discover or hear about in the news, something just to relieve the tedium of everyday life. Those stories became international headlines. But countless other hoaxes have quietly faded into history. Some are strange, some are dark, and the story I'm about to reveal takes us deep into the rainforests of the Philippines, where the world believed it discovered a tribe of untouched civilization, a people who supposedly lived in complete isolation for thousands of years, sleeping in caves and wearing orchid leaf skirts and knowing nothing about the modern world. For years, the Tasaday Tribe was celebrated as one of the greatest anthropological discoveries of the 20th century. But beneath the headlines, something wasn't quite right. The year is 1971, and deep within the dense rainforest of the Philippine island of Mindanao, a discovery is announced that will astonish the world. Hidden beneath the thick jungle canopy, officials claim to have found a special, small group of people who have lived almost completely untouched by modern civilization. They are called the Tasaday, and according to the announcement, there are only 26 of them. They have no agriculture, no written language, no weapons beyond simple tools, and they sleep in caves, wear clothing made from leaves, and they supposedly lived in almost complete isolation for over 1,000 years. To anthropologists, it sounds like a discovery of a lifetime. To the media, it's irresistible. Newspapers from around the world publish photographs of smiling families dressed in woven leaves, living peacefully beneath towering cliffs. Magazine covers describe them as Stone Age tribe. Television crews call them the gentlest people on earth. Some even suggest they represent a living window into humanity's distant past. The world is captivated. Very few people are allowed to see them. Access to the Tasaday is tightly controlled by one man, Manuel Elizalde Jr., a wealthy businessman, government advisor, and head of an organization created to protect the tribe. Elizalde insists that the Tasaday must remain isolated from the outside world. Only carefully selected journalists and researchers are granted permission to visit. Their time with the tribe is brief, every interview is supervised, every photograph carefully managed, and it seems perfectly reasonable. If the tribe truly has remained isolated for centuries, protecting them from disease and exploitation would be essential. But others began asking uncomfortable questions. Why is access restricted? Why can't independent scientists conduct longer studies? And why does every visitor seem to leave with exactly the same carefully crafted story? Still, few dare to question what appears to be one of the greatest anthropological discoveries of the 20th century. Then, everything changes. In 1972, Philippine President Marcos declares martial law. The country becomes increasingly closed to outsiders. For years, almost no one sees the Tasaday again. The tribe disappears behind a curtain of political secrecy. Then, in 1986, the Marcos government falls. Journalists quickly return to Mindanao, and what they discover shocks the world. Caves are empty. The people who are supposedly living like Stone Age hunter-gatherers are nowhere to be found. Eventually, located in the nearby villages. Many are wearing jeans and t-shirts and modern clothing. Some speak local languages fluently. Several live in ordinary houses. The dramatic leaf clothing seen in photographs is nowhere in sight. Almost immediately, the accusations began. Had the entire discovery been staged? Had the Tasaday simply been local farmers pretending to be Stone Age people? One journalist famously claimed the tribe admitted that they had only worn the leaf costumes because they'd been instructed to. The headlines were explosive. Stone Age tribe that never was. The greatest anthropological hoax of the century. For many, the case seemed closed, but history is rarely that simple. As more researchers returned to study the Tasaday, the story became increasingly complicated. Some argued that the original reports had indeed been exaggerated. Photographs carefully staged, media access tightly controlled. The image presented to the world was far more dramatic than reality. Yet other researchers found evidence that the Tasaday were not complete imposters. They really did exist. They belonged to a small indigenous community with their own language, customs, and traditions. Many had lived in remarkable isolation compared to neighboring groups. While they were certainly aware of nearby communities, their contact with the outside world had been extremely limited. Rather than a completely fake tribe, some historians now believe they became unwilling participants in a carefully constructed myth. A real people presented as something they were not. Much of the controversy centers around Manuel Elizalde himself. He claims that he was a passionate conservationist trying to protect vulnerable indigenous people from exploitation. Some saw him as an ambitious showman who released the story of a Stone Age tribe, knowing it would attract worldwide attention. He controlled everything: who visited, what they saw, and perhaps even the story itself. But then, when the questions seemed to be starting to be answered, he disappeared. After the Marcos government collapsed, he left the Philippines carrying millions of dollars intended for the indigenous development programs. He lived abroad for years before eventually returning, where he died in 1997. Many of the questions surrounding the Tasaday remain unanswered. But anthropologists generally agree on one thing. The Tasaday were real people, but the version presented to the world in 1971 almost certainly wasn't the whole truth. Were they isolated? Yes, to a degree. Were they living exactly as Stone Age humans thousands of years ago? Almost certainly not. Their story was exaggerated, or perhaps staged. Many researchers believe that it was, which means the real hoax wasn't the existence of the Tasaday, it was the story told about them. Perhaps what makes this case so fascinating, unlike many hoaxes, there is no single moment where everything is exposed. No confession, no smoking gun, only layers of truth mixed with performance and politics and media sensationalism and the human desire to discover something extraordinary. Because sometimes the most convincing lies aren't completely false. They're built around just enough truth to make us believe the rest. The carefully crafted version of reality was just enough to fool many, but the jungle still holds secrets. The whole truth may never be revealed. Thank you for watching this episode of Shadow Skull Studios. I hope you enjoyed joining me as we uncovered another of one of history's most unusual hoaxes. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Your support really helps me to uncover more unusual, forgotten, wonderfully creepy stories from history to share with you. If there's a mystery or hoax or strange historical tale you want me to explore, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep questioning, stay curious, and remember, the truth can be stranger than fiction. Sometimes fiction becomes history. Till next time, stay spooky. Goodbye.